And good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smudcast number 703. Every government in Avatar is a dictatorship. Okay, that should be a rather clear yes/no answer.
I disagree.
Okay.
And I believe we covered this on Sisyphus Experience years ago.
It is possible that one of you guys have looked at this guy before or a video of this nature. I think we've heard of topics like this before on this podcast. I just can't remember. It's been a while since we talked about Avatar. And maybe this is sort of like a meta-analysis, like, oh, now that you think about it, all of these governments are like X. And you're like, oh, okay. That might be interesting to look at. But if it's not, then you're reaching and you really are trying to invent some narrative that isn't there. So this is the major question. What is going on with this guy? So this video, let me see some stats on it. It has come out last year in February, has over 300,000 views from James Tullos. So,
did anyone like it?
Yeah, 17,000 upvotes, 778 downvotes, according to my plugin. So
that's not enough.
Apparently it's well received. So good for him. It's a good video. It's a long video. It's 26, almost 27 minutes. I hope we're not going to cover all that. That will take way too much time. But depends on how frequent we pause and listen and respond. So we don't know what's going to happen with this video. I've never covered this guy. Apparently, one of you guys know about him. Is this a good video? Is it a bad video? I don't know what this guy does.
I don't remember. I only remember we covered it and it was not right.
Oh.
I forgot everything else.
Okay.
I still remember Avatar because it's a very memorable series. Unlike its successor.
Hey, Korra is very memorable as a
yes, it is memorable, but Korra I don't want to remember.
The Dark Avatar.
Let's say, oh god, let's say the only worthwhile character of Korra was Varric, if that was his name, and his assistant, because Varric had an actual, you could say he had an arc. He was the only character who sort of had an arc and went through changes and realizations, and changed from the cowardly comic relief support character to doing a heroic selfless deed at the end. So he's a better person than Korra.
I know what you're talking about. Amon. I was Team Amon since the start of the show. That Korra and all the benders in that show are horrible people.
Yeah, it's just.
And it just gets worse the longer the series goes on, showing that if you're not a bender, you can go fuck yourself.
Let's not talk about Korra. That is non-canon. It will be non-canon eventually. We just need to wait long enough.
Well,
because Avatar the Last Airbender is the thing everybody will just keep talking about and show their kids, and they are less likely to show Korra to their kids.
Well, this is a video about politics, or at least the analysis of the societies in Avatar and naming them as such a dictatorship. So that is going to be based on his definition and his evidence of why he thinks that. So I'm sure there's lots of tribal states or peoples that do not have this level of sophistication that a dictatorship would require. But yeah, but this is what the analysis should provide. Say, oh yeah, but there's these other groups that don't do this. That's fine.
I could say 3, 2.5.
Okay, and either way, let's get going. It's a 26 and 46 second minute video.
Okay,
here we go.
Just the spoiler. The only things you can call dictatorships are the Fire Nation, which is ruled by an emperor, a monarchy more or less, basically, and the Earth Nation, which is a monarchy currently ruled by, in Avatar, it's still an emperor, is it? Empress was it an empress already?
I don't know. Emperor before in the Earth Kingdom.
Okay. And the rest is some tribes, and you can't really call a bunch of nomads living in temples, praying all the time. Dictatorship, really.
I had not an argument, discussion with the lads about that in regards to tribes, because, well, we all agreed that dictator implies absolute power to an individual, usually through brutality and force. How can you... You're going to be struggling to argue that a bunch of tribals, like regardless of structure, are capable of having a dictator, since tribes are usually characterized by tightly knitted communities.
Yeah, tribes tend to be relatively small, and when they're pissed off with their leader, that usually ends with the leader not being a leader anymore, either peacefully or
Forcefully.
by casting the leader, the then ex-leader out, or just removing him from life, and then you get a new leader, which is a very basic democratic thing, you could say.
Indeed. Also, welcome, Mike.
Hey, Mike.
Mike,
I hated.
are you sure you want to be on for this? It's up to you, of course.
Yep.
But all right, fair enough.
Hated how they broke the rules for bloodbending, though.
Okay. Well, this is all politics, so hopefully it's going to be pretty focused on point and not talking about other things, other stats, other lore, other plot.
You've come to the wrong channel, my friend.
Oh yeah, this guy is all over the place.
Somebody play the Soviet anthem.
This guy is very rambly, he's very scatterbrained, but he certainly read a lot of trash and can talk about the tropes within, like the very surface level stuff, but any deeper than skin, he's gonna start fumbling. So already saying that every government never says dictatorship makes me question if he understands what a dictatorship implies.
Okay. Anyway, let's get started.
With the obvious. Avatar the Last Airbender is an amazing show for a variety of reasons that others have already explained for over 15 years now. Legend of Korra is more controversial, but I still enjoy it. One of the best parts of the show is just how big and rich the world it takes place in is. There are tons of different animals, unusual geography, a deep magic system, a long history, and many different cultures to explore here. I've wanted to make a video about this for a long time. The problem is that so many others have already done that, it would just be retreading old ground. But while rewatching the show for the 4th or 5th time, I found myself paying attention to exactly how all the different nations are run, and I noticed that there's a lot of thought and care put into that. After all, examining the ways that governments and traditions screw people over is a big part of the series. I'll say now that this isn't some sort of the heroes are actually villains type videos, so don't expect that. The title
Motherfucker, you cannot say that this is not going to be a takedown of how the heroes are actually the villains, whilst your thumbnail is the Avatar equals Stalin.
And your claim that every government is evil, more or less, basically. Because people usually think that dictatorship means evil, so go on.
And accurate. Every government shown in both The Last Airbender and Korra is a dictatorship. They're just different types of dictatorships. Because all governments exist on a spectrum, from democratic on one end to authoritarian on the other. It isn't as simple as, this evil guy is in charge and people do what he says because of reasons. There are reasons for people to be members of...
Is this guy's understanding of politics? Democracy on one end.
Okay, let's just break down this one immediately. Democracy and dictatorships usually actually tend to be right next to one another. They're not ends of a spectrum.
How about oligarchy? How about no one in power?
Anarchy.
Yeah, there's all kinds of variations here. I'm not that well versed in politics to say I know better, but I think there's a bit more we could put in between and before and after each. So
it's like democracy is democracy itself has taken on this disgusting, bloated, mutated form where it has values put upon it which the actual word does not describe. Choosing someone by vote does not actually define how the government is run. You can have a democratic dictatorship. Absolutely. You can choose who to like who you decide to become the dictator. Like how Rome would have, where the dictator role comes from, is a democratically chosen person that has emergency powers. The absolute.
I'm trying to think of hypothetical politics that could fill in both.
Technocracy?
Yeah, like say like there's a religious one and there's technocratic one. There's all kinds of variations that would have multiple people that are elected democratically. It's very hard to figure this out based off, well, one guy's in charge, so is that a monarchy? It's like, no. Well, it could be.
You can also bring up the argument of democracy just being the dictatorship of the majority.
It is.
Or if you have a minority government, it's the dictatorship of the minority, which is exactly what we wanted to prevent.
All right.
So, this is very
depending on your type of democracy, there are tons of different types of democracy. So you, as you said, just calling it democracy doesn't tell us anything about how things are actually run. The way democracy works in Germany is utter shit. The way it works in Switzerland is completely different. The way it works in the United States is completely different yet again.
The way it works in Sweden is that it doesn't.
So it's like Germany.
All right. Anyway.
Armies and heroes, much like how complex villains, evil regimes.
No. This is what I mean with he can understand basic bitch storytelling, but he paints himself in this corner where complex villain equals better than simple villain. Sauron.
I like the Sauron.
No, go on. Mike.
I was gonna say, sometimes, simple, mustache twirler from now and then.
I think you cut out after the ya.
I was just saying, wouldn't it be just more fun to have the mustache twirlers instead of just, constantly having the complex, because then it kind of gets into the realm where, are we sure these guys are complex, or they just the twirlers but in disguise, but just kind of lame.
Once in a while you need a good mustache twirler.
All right. Here is...
Yes,
I agree.
Oh.
Here is Sadie Inward. Thank you, Sadie. Azula. Okay, Avatar, maybe it didn't happen, but 6 million airbenders all killed within 4 years of the Great War in a chamber with a wooden door, and all the nations banning discussion of the whole thing seems a bit odd. I'm just saying 103 nations and all. Okay.
Now, first off, it's 4 airbender places. They have no doors. They have no windows except holes in the walls. And it's, 100 years? Just saying.
Anyway, back
get your facts right.
Back to our leaders are always evil argument.
Right, so it's the whole idea of complex is better than simple it is fact that it is a lie. It is a lie you tell yourself when you don't understand how writing works, and it is a case-by-case basis because you want to be able to tell people how to write. Which is the quote-unquote dark side of tips on writing is people will eventually. It is not a maybe, it is an eventually. People whose jobs it is to tell you how to write will eventually give you such broad generalizations that are completely useless once you actually get into writing. You don't need a complex villain if you're just making the darkness or the flood or Sauron.
Then I'm just tired of faux complex villains where it's like, oh hey, this guy, this poor bastard, he went through so much, but he's gonna start a revolution that's gonna kill children and women. But hey, life's gonna get better, right? We gotta root for this guy now because he's so complex and not a fucking phony.
Right.
Oh, that was a great example. Is the nothing in the Never-Ending Story.
Indeed.
If you've never seen the first movie, ignore all the others. If you've never seen the first movie, watch it. It is amazing. And the villain is just nothing.
All right, let's keep going.
Better than ones that just exist. Elements in Avatar's world work, but how they change over time. Because I had no friends as a child and I've been stuck inside for 2 years. But before that, sponsor time.
What?
Our world is a chaotic
No.
place.
What is happening?
We are small, insignificant
China.
drops of water caught up in a raging tsunami of history.
Insurance?
Our
What's he
families,
selling?
friends, allies, and enemies
don't
alike
know.
are just part of a fathomless, ever-shifting mass of
Tofu
humanity.
drags?
Billions of people.
Maybe shoes.
War never changes.
Billions of people, each with an internal realm as complex as our own, and each following their own goals. Like a colony of ants, we swarm over the corpse of the earth,
Oh my
tearing
God.
our civilization's sustenance from its belly without a single word of thanks.
A what?
We poison our own water and air
Clear.
without a thought for consequence. And when one half of the colony sees a different path than our own, we threaten to kill ourselves as a means of deterrence. But who cares about all of that when we have
What is going on?
campfire.com?
I don't know.
More than 150,000
Wait,
hours.
wait, why is this an
What the
empire?
fuck was that?
Why did you do this whole thing where it's like fucking Holocaust happening, fucking tsunamis made of blood and mud? But hey, campfire, you could write all about that.
It's what I mean. He
If
is.
all you're writing to a private company instead of having it on your own paper.
I can't tell if it was an ad or if it was just part of the fucking thing there for a second.
I do find this very funny that his entire channel is about writing, yet when he has to write this dramatic shit, it is such fifth grader itch.
Okay, that was an advertisement. Let's keep going.
Improve and showcase their writing, or dozen modules like character sheets, timelines, relationship webs,
You don't need
and a
this.
manuscript
Yeah.
editor that lets you reference your notes while you write.
Skip ahead.
Everything you create is private. Share your on bigger projects. At least their description may as well just realist empire.
So, just a quick anecdote for Campfire. The whole platform seems like a great tool for wasting your time.
Well, if you want everything in one spot, which you would normally do with notes or spreadsheets or whatever you use to organize your thoughts, I guess that would be good. But, once you start writing, that's it. Like, that's the proof of what you're doing.
The writing is the important part. You don't need fancy images. You're not setting up a tabletop game.
Yeah.
And if you're setting up a tabletop game, you're using Roll20. You're not using Campfire.
Yeah,
Because you're not going to be using that as the platform to do the game. So you'd just be wasting your time writing on something nobody will ever see.
Yeah, if you actually want to write a story, then you do that organizing yourself, because that makes it way more ingrained in your head. You process it much better. You make much better connections than using some other tool where you just click the things in. It's always better doing things by hand.
Anyway,
Let's start.
let's keep going.
by Fire Lord Ozai. Despite being relatively small, they've managed to destroy the Air Nomads, wreck half the water tribes, and colonize a decent chunk of the Earth Kingdom. Turns out tanks are useful. The Fire Nation is
That's a weird map. The one you see in the intro, the Fire Nation looks tiny. Just like Japan compared to China. And on that map, it looked way too big. But okay, go on.
a pretty straightforward absolute monarchy. What the Fire Lord says goes. End of story. But how do they maintain that iron grip? How do they convince others to follow them and do their bidding? This is the question at the heart of governance, and what it comes down to is that every ruler needs a support base to stay in power, whether this base is large or small. You can't just declare that you're in charge.
Both of these are modeled after Japan and China. And in those, you can assume similar is the claim that somewhere down the line, God stuff happened, and that's why we have this amazing line of emperors as they are somehow divine, have special abilities or something, and that's why we accept them, because that's the story we tell. The whole military stuff comes after that.
Also, the reason why the map looks weird is because he fucked with the scales of everything. He turned the water tribe into the North Pole.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, that's Lala posted the right map in the DM. That looks way more right.
Everything looks stretched and unnatural in the map he showed.
Yeah.
In the third season of the original show, we get a good look at how this works. First, regular Fire Nation citizens are inundated with propaganda. In their mandatory schooling, in addition to learning stuff like reading and math, they're indoctrinated with all sorts of ideas about how their country is the greatest in the world and how their imperialism is justified. Their genocide of the Air Nomads? Self-defense. They attacked first. Just like how the Armenians attacked those poor Turkish soldiers' bullets with their bodies in 1916. Their invasion of the Earth Kingdom? We're spreading our ideals to the barbarians, just like how the Spanish used smallpox to heroically civilize the Inca.
They did not use the smallpox. That was an accident.
Yes, that was a completely normal. We go somewhere and they're not immune to our diseases. We are not immune to their diseases.
They were horrified at what happened. They weren't sitting there reading, like grinding it, cackling, rubbing their hands, going, "Those filthy barbarians."
Here in Europe, we got the smallpox in the, I think, 11th century through Jerusalem. Thanks for that. And then the people who survived were immune. Great.
My secret weapon accidentally getting you sick. Sure, that was always part of my plan, you know?
Yeah. Also, the entire thing. By the way, and it is assumed that the syphilis we actually got from the Native Americans, which they were sort of used to, or immune or something, but it got over here and caused quite some problems. So this goes around the world, just wherever you go. But the whole using smallpox as a weapon thing, the only account of that I did find was somewhere in the 1800s, in one instance with some tribe, I think in don't beat me up for it. I think Georgia also. No, not Georgia. No, I can't remember which state it was, and it was just one instance of one blanket given, or one or two blankets given, and even that was questionable, whether that was truly intended or not. But the one of these, the general in charge, kind of let it pass. So that's basically, that'll okay. He got an infected one. Well, good riddance. That was the only incident I could find where that was actively used. Yes, smallpox killed a lot of Native Americans and a lot of people in Latin and South America. True. But the intentional spread of it? Not really, no. If you find more, please paste them in the chat, place them in the Discord. I looked this up because I had this argument just last week with a friend of mine, and then I kept digging, and I only found this one instance where it's actually happened actively.
All right.
A long way to explain why people are satisfied with the current regime. Propaganda only goes so far, though. Eventually, reality sets in and you need to make a material difference in your followers' lives before they catch on to you. All leaders need the support of some of the people they lead to stay in power. In democracies, they need a large coalition of followers. In autocracies, they only need a small coalition. But either way, there are some people they need to keep happy and loyal to stay in power. The Fire Nation is not a democracy, it's a small coalition government. The Fire Lord has seemingly surrounded himself by a loyal aristocracy that commands his military and otherwise executes his will. So even if the average citizens weren't on his side, he would still hold all the power in his country. The peasants don't have tanks, nor...
Wait a second, isn't a coalition government like a parliament, which is based off democracy? You have to vote those people into parliament and then they can make a coalition? That's just...
I'm also confused. I don't think he knows the words he uses properly.
Yeah, my brain was like, wait a second, that's all... Anyway.
Nor do they have access to all the best firebending training and the time to practice, so even benders would be at a disadvantage.
You're not bringing up where the Fire Nation is not caring for the well-being of its people. Because if it is, there's no reason to rise up against the Fire Lord. There's no reason to rise up against the government when the government is actually doing well for its own people.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what form of government your government is if it is serving its people.
Here is the Copper Owl. Thank you, sir. Conquistador did nothing wrong. God, gold, and glory. Oh, really?
Yeah, also an end to human sacrifices.
There you
Well,
go.
I mean, the Aztecs had it coming.
The human sacrifices will end. Artistic reaching proceeded.
Yeah, that whole thing would not have worked if the Aztecs weren't a really shitty government. That was the reason. Everyone but I think one tribe thing, town, city was on the side of God, the hour. What was his name?
Not Charlemagne.
Not Charlemagne. Come on, you know this.
Off the top
How
of
could
my
I
head, no.
What is wrong with my brain lately?
Does anyone remember their history of the Aztecs?
Cortez, thank you, Master Wolf. Yeah, everyone, all of the people except one tribe was on the side of Cortez because they hated the Aztec government just that much.
All right.
So, is that democratic? Is that a democratic overthrow of the Aztec Empire? Because the people decided. Huh? Just asking, because you're kind of trying to make that argument here for the Fire Nation.
Sounds like a
Would
militia.
be unlikely to succeed.
Sounds like
Yeah,
a
sort
militia.
of. The people's uprising,
There you go.
seizing the means of sacrifice.
It means we're going to kill you so you don't kill us. Whether it's ritualistic or warlike, we don't care. We don't want to die.
Yeah, we don't want to be killed, so we kill you.
There you go.
Basically, basic human logic.
Why do the aristocrats follow Ozai? They're the ones who own all the factories pumping out war machines and other various products, and this ownership makes them wealthy. However, to manufacture products, you need resources, and whoever controls those resources controls the...
You're assuming a lot here. Maybe the other nobles in the Fire Nation, because I don't remember that even being explored in any way, are just trying to govern their provinces well for the benefit of their people. And if that makes them money, all the better, because that means you can invest that back into your province for the benefit of your people. And when your people are happy, they're happy with you being in power. You
This
know,
is
you should maybe you shouldn't just read all this capitalist, socialist junk, but also something like, I don't know, Machiavelli.
Yeah, there's also basic legal contracts that we don't need a specific legal system to enforce. It's just, I'm going to do this for you because I said so, and this contract says that we're going to do it regardless of whatever political ideology or setup you've got. This is what you're paying me for. This is business, and we're going to do what we told you we'd do. There's obviously issues with canceling contracts and things you don't want to do. Like, oh, we're making weapons for war. How did that happen? So it really comes down to what's the business at hand, who is capable of doing these things, facilitating this function, whether it's war or we're building a big giant tower to worship Ra or whatever we're doing. So that's just business. That's just logistics and making something, whatever it is they want to do.
This is what's known as the paradox of plenty, or the resource curse. Countries with a lot of natural resources have the opportunity to grow wealthy, but in reality that wealth flows to those in control of the resources. Ha! You thought this video was about Avatar and I'm giving you an economics lesson.
And you fail. Because a lot of African nations have a damn lot of natural resources. Man,
Everywhere.
why
It's
were there
literally
never
in
any
the-
empires?
It's literally in the ground. You can up your head into the ground and just eat it. It is nutritious. It is delicious.
Yeah, so all that amazing cobalt and other shit. It's all right there, under your feet. And somehow these nations didn't, or peoples, tribes, never built these giant fledgling empires with their Black Panther super tech. No, they just kept throwing sticks at each other.
The resource curse. All right. I mean, this could be a thing. I've never heard of that, but fair enough.
I mean, you still... Well, the problem is corruption happens all the time unless you actively fight against it, and that fight also may eventually be lost because the forces that fight against the corruption will be subverted, because corruption tries to do that because it wants to keep the corruption going, which is purely self-serving. But before you get into all this resource exploitation, you first need to develop the technology to exploit the resources, to even know they're there and what you can use them for. So just the resources being there does nothing. And then you look at other countries on the planet that have absolutely no fucking resources, and they're damn rich. Why? Well, because they know how to game the system and become tax havens or something like that.
All right. Here is Fire Nation Supremacist. Here we go. Hail Ozai, Total Airbender Death. Kill Airbender, behead Airbender, roundhouse kick a wind monkey into the trash can, slam dunk a breeze baby into the trash can, crucify filthy Airbender, defecate in the Airbender's tea kettle, curb stomp pregnant Airbenders. Okay. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful meme.
Bretnot makes an interesting point that the problem with resource in Africa is that it requires better tech. And
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
There's a lot of logistical issues with what's happening in Africa and why.
Now, the big thing I don't buy is that we have pumped so much money into Africa that if it was just a technology issue, Rhodesia, like the area of Rhodesia, or Zimbabwe, I guess, would have been a flourishing empire by now because they have all the technology that was brought there and built up. But the place looks the same like it did when the Whiteys left.
That's the same issue with any resource-rich country like Canada. We've got thousands of miles of God knows what, but who wants to go up there in the freezing cold to dig and drill? And
Ice giants.
Well, I mean, we have enough, carbon, just carbon in general, to fuel the Earth several times over for God knows how many decades. But we have to refine it, and we don't have the recipe. The states have all the petroleum licenses and permits, so it's like, okay, we can get it out of the ground, but we have to ship it out to the states, and then they have to refine it, and then they sell it. So it's
why are we doing this green energy scam again? If we have the other stuff still for so long that we can develop fusion.
Well, we're getting there, but I love the fact that Germany actually started dismantling their wind turbines, I think, and are making.
Are we?
Oh, I read a thing in the news 2 days ago.
They're breaking down. That's all.
They're taking them down and they're making coal plants. So that was cool. I was like, hey.
That part you mean? Yeah, because they do know that when the grid fails, people get unhappy, and when people get unhappy, they don't want the socialist idiots in power anymore.
Wasn't it also due to Russia cutting off the valve?
They didn't need to cut off the valve because Biden bombed it.
Anyways, I think we've wandered far enough off the point now.
Yep.
Saudi Arabia is one of the most authoritarian.
Why are you
countries
using
on Earth, and the reason
Wikipedia?
for that is that the royal family controls all the oil. There's very little else making money in the country, so the government has no competition and no motivation to build proper infrastructure or allow its citizens certain freedoms that would allow them to diversify the economy.
Oh, they are
Fire
trying
Nation is
to.
located in a volcanic archipelago, and those are treasure troves of metals. The first Fire Lord would have been whoever grabbed
It's also
control
free
of these
geothermal
deposits.
energy.
Then he could gift some of that wealth to his favored servants, who would be above everyone else and able to enforce his will, but still dependent on him. After the country industrialized far enough, they would have used a lot of their home resources, and that means going abroad for more. The reason the Fire Nation...
No. See, you don't understand economics. You don't use up your own resources and then go elsewhere to get more. You don't use your own resources and only use as much as you need in order to take over other places and take their resources, so that you always have your own, where it's safe, as a backbone, which is exactly what the United States is doing, because they have tons of oil, they wouldn't need to buy from Saudi Arabia, but they do, because that means they don't need to use up their own reserves. That's still in the ground. The way you go about it, you would ruin yourself. If you want to use Nazi Germany as the counterexample, well, they didn't have much resources to begin with. We're heating with brown coal because we don't have anything better.
I do believe there is a name for this theory in world politics and country governments, but I can't think of it. But I do know what he's talking about. Where you have just enough so you can conquer other places. But there are examples historically where you have very few resources and you're essentially flying by the seat of your pants, such as World War II Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And his argument is that is how the Fire Lord led the Fire Nation, which I would argue, if he is running dry when he is invading the world, why is the Fire Nation still an active government after the First War? Like, they invaded, according to him, they invaded once they were already dry. Unlike civilization, you can't just go at a minus gold for 300 years, okay? People are going to be pissed. You can't just run a machine without steam or coal. If you invade what's already running dry on resources, unless you are directly connected to a neighbor, which the Fire Nation, by that map, is not. They have to cross the sea to even get to the Earth or Water Nation or Air Nations. You are running on borrowed time.
And the Fire Nation can run on volcano energy. Literally.
All right.
So that's a lot of green energy. I mean, red energy. Is it red energy?
Natural energy. Anyway.
Was for things their factories need to run, like project peoples. The only way they can get a hold of those is through the Fire Lord, who is in charge of the war and the colonies that the war created. If any of the local elites tried to take control of the resources themselves, Ozai's forces, fearing losing access, would swoop down on them and put down their rebellion without mercy. Obviously, if they all rose up at once, then...
Was there any episode that showed any Fire Nation people being unhappy, living in the Fire Nation?
There is. The only one that comes to mind is Azula essentially disowning, and she fucks over one of the Fire Lord nobles in that one episode.
That's still aristocracy bullshit. That doesn't matter. And it's Azula's psychopath narcissism bullshit.
Right. That's the only episode that comes to mind.
Yeah, we don't know anything about the Fire Nation people.
Like most of that
little episode where Aang infiltrates the school. The Fire Nation people seem happy.
What we know of the Fire Nation is like them visiting the Fire Nation, seeing the giant statue, them infiltrating the prison where everyone seems pretty chill. The school episode where we don't really get that much outside of standard be loyal to your nation,
which everybody did in history. Have a picture of your president or chancellor or whatever you currently have, or your Kaiser on the wall. This is nothing special. But
rose up at once,
were the people unhappy being part of the Fire Nation? As I said, we only saw the military for the most part.
We see
people in the Earth Kingdom being unhappy.
Yeah, we see...
The Earth Kingdom has problems.
Every nation has problems in the Avatar world, but there's a compilation of just fire dudes being chill, and that's like most of the interactions we see of the Fire Nation guys, is that they're just normal dudes.
Yeah, because they're just, okay, our boss decided that the war machine is going now. Okay, so we do the war thing, okay. That's that. But that's how you roll as a nation in the olden days. And in the today days as well, it seems.
Rose up at once, then he'd be unable to do anything. But they never will. Some of them would be content with the current status quo, some of them would be distrustful of their fellow would-be revolutionaries, and others would just be fearful of retribution. There would never be more than a minority of Ozai's support base that wanted to overthrow him or otherwise escape from under his thumb. Unless he does something to threaten their wealth and power, they feel they have nothing to lose. This is the balancing act that rulers have always had to play. As long as Ozai keeps the war going and the resources keep flowing in, their wealth will stay secure and they'll have...
The war is not in order to appease the aristocrats. The war is solely to appease Ozai's ego. It's all about him.
Help keep him in. It's clear that the Fire Nation's industrialization hasn't been a benefit for everyone. The pollution caused by it has destroyed entire villages, but they're poor. They're not a part of Ozai's support base, so who cares? It doesn't matter what happens to them, he stays in power either way. Why waste the treasury on peasants? The Water Tribes, the Inuit-inspired people who live on the poles of the planet and somehow don't freeze to death. The northern and...
Maybe you should look up how Inuit lived and didn't freeze to death, because they kind of did that for a couple millennia. Just saying. Is it the people in Scandinavia? Siberia?
Yeah, I was about to mention Siberia. It's like, maybe you should look up Siberia. I've heard Siberia is kind of cold.
Yeah.
Southern largely separate from one another due to their distance. They've developed distinct identities and cultures, though they still see themselves as two branches of the same tree. By the time the show starts, the Southern Tribe has been reduced to little more than a tiny village on the ice filled with children and the elderly. They don't seem to have much governance or need for governance at all. They just want to be left alone. Base.
They have no governance? There's elderly.
It's not much shown there, but yeah, it will be the elderly, and they will have a chief.
It's almost
Because
like
when
it's
you
a
are a tribe, you have a
tribe.
chief. Yeah, a tribe has a chief. A tribe is not just random people sitting together. That's not a tribe.
Right.
A tribe is a cohesive unit.
Right,
And
it's
that
almost
unit
like it's
will
a
have
war.
decider. It's a decider guy.
It's almost like you got the Air Nomads, the Water Tribes, the Earth Kingdom, and the Fire Nation.
That implies that the Fire Nation would be the most developed form of government? Although they're based more or less the same as the Earth Kingdom. But back to this Water Tribe. The decider guy is not necessarily the one who micromanages everything, as certain ideologues love to, but just the guy who has the last word, or that people come to when they don't know what to do and then look to. Like, oh, we can't find the consensus. Hey, decider guy, what do you think? Oh, do that. Oh, okay. And that's it. That can still be democratic. It doesn't need to be a tyranny. Fucking hell.
The Northern Tribe has defended itself better and thus has a lot more people. However, their economy is extremely simple. It's based on small subsistence farming and hunting. Their only exports are animal products like fur. They don't have any building materials either. The only reasons they can have permanent structures is because they control water and ice. They don't have an army since those require a lot of support and organization to function, but they do have a large, well-trained militia of both benders and non-benders.
So an army. It's just a small army, but it's still an army.
If they
That's the problem with using the term army, because you usually have a very specific image in your head when you say army, where unlike, say, your military. Like, military can be anything from militia, levymen, like mercenaries, whatever have you.
Well, even tribes of Greece.
These are not just civilians under arms. They are trained warriors, and that makes them an army.
Right. It doesn't really matter in what denomination, what hierarchy, whether there's a government organization. It doesn't really matter. They're a bunch of people who are soldiers fighting for their group. It's the same thing.
Right.
And for that thing, Luxembourg has an army. It even has armored units. It has one tank. You may laugh about that, but that is still an army. They have a tank.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Novus Kaiser in the chat said Sokka and Katara's father is the chief. Well, there you go.
For the leader to keep admirals for the leader to keep happy. Although their leader is called a chief instead of a king, he holds direct control over the army and navy without anyone else getting between him and his men. We see during the siege.
Wait, so it is an army?
Why would he say a chief and not a king? Like, what is he trying to imply? That the tribe is a dictatorship of some kind?
He thinks because his position is passed down his family line that makes him a king and not a chief somehow.
That's still
a king can be elected, and a chief can be hereditary.
A lot of tribes were hereditary. It was one of the most prevalent forms of control in all human society.
Yeah. The German Kaiser was elected by the kings.
Is he just arguing semantics this entire time?
Which doesn't really work when he doesn't know the words.
What would it end with that when he says hierarchy for fucking monarchy for the chief thing, when it's like it's clear as day. Yeah, no, chief stuff is just hereditary there. That's mostly hereditary.
All right.
I'd say you should go back to his campfire.
He's making some argument. I just don't know which exactly he's focusing on. He's just describing.
I'm waiting for the guillotine to drop.
North that the chief takes a direct role in city. There's no potential for other leaders to undercut him or stage a coup. As long as he keeps regular soldiers in the militia loyal, he stays in power. Beyond that, he has a lot of control over most aspects of how the tribe operates. The only thing that seems to...
So now it's a militia again.
Are we sure this guy watched the show?
He's just full of headcanon that he projects onto the show.
Does he think
no one has the possibility to influence him at all? He just shuts the doors when he starts planning. He has no advisor. He takes no shit from anyone. If Aang saw that this guy was about to throw a bunch of people into a megalodon's mouth, the leader would tell him to shut the fuck up and execute his ass.
He also cannot be supplanted at all by an assassin, because the Northern Water Tribe would just be completely headless forever, never again having a chief.
Yeah.
Because the bloodline has ended.
All his lieutenants are completely loyal. They have no possible argument against risking their lives for this guy. Whatever he orders, he's like, okay.
The tribe leader has died. Billions must die now.
Yeah, everyone commits sashimi.
The thing that seems to prevent the Northern Tribe from being a complete autocracy is an independent judiciary that tries and punishes criminals. Of course, they're still susceptible to bribery, as we see with Unalaq during Legend of Korra. The two tribes were extremely far apart from one another for their whole history, meaning the South was much smaller and less developed than the North. By the time Korra starts, the Southern Tribe is led by Chief Tonraq, who was originally from the North before being exiled. How exactly he came to power is unclear, but after Season 1 of the original series, delegates from the Northern Tribe go to help rebuild the South.
Maybe they liked him. Maybe he had good ideas that the North didn't like, but the South thought, hey, that guy actually makes sense.
I mean, his daughter wasn't a good idea, though.
We don't talk about that.
With their military and economic position, as well as their big... hard to imagine them exerting a lot of control over their sister tribe, turning it into a sort of colony. The thing is, when the North comes...
I think this whole thing in Korra is also a problem by these hack writers that made Korra, that they thought that we need to develop the South. Like, there was... I didn't see any need in Avatar the Last Airbender that the South needed any of that. They just had a different way of life. They were basically ice nomads.
Comes in to take over directly, people are upset. However, before the war, the Northern Chief was already the head of both tribes, at least nominally, and they've already been under heavy Northern influence for at least 2 generations by then. It seems a tad weird for them to be upset at Unalaq for nationalistic reasons and not Tonraq. They are literally brothers. Tonraq even helps lead the resistance efforts against the Northern Tribe. Maybe
go away
Unalaq
from the
isn't
Korra
only
shit,
one who's
please.
taking advantage of a crisis to gain power for himself.
Oh, that's the argument?
This one is harder to pin.
Huh? Where was the dictator part?
I don't know.
So chief
Because
That's
it's
easy.
one person. It says there's one person at the top. So Germany is a dictatorship because it has a chancellor and or a president.
kings
Da-
are
Somehow-
Denmark is an infamous fucking dictatorship because it has a king and queen
yeah.
and a prime minister.
If you have a chief
So
of
is
a
the
tribe,
Netherlands.
that's another name for a king, which is another name for a dictator, apparently. Okay.
Again, if you have a leader, you're a dictator. I'm
You know,
sorry.
Great Britain is a dictatorship. Like, look, it was under the rule of the same person for 120 years. How old did Elizabeth get?
Well, not that old. But
Very.
I think the
She
queen-
refused. She just refused to sit down.
Yeah. Anyway, this is not getting anywhere fast. He's just describing things and going, well, they're not like a king, but they could be. It's like,
96.
Down, as the Air Nomads barely exist by the time the series begins, and we only see their society operate in a few brief flashbacks. Here's what we know. Airbenders are born and raised in one of their temples. They wander the world throughout most of their adulthood, and then when they're old, they come back to the temples as monks. We also know that the pre-war air temples were theocratic, meaning they were ruled by religious authorities. Each temple had a council of elders made up of 5 monks. There's no central government for all temples as far as we see.
you just said they're theocratic.
No, you can have a theocratic governments for your individual temples. His argument is that there is no overarching dictator for all the Air Nomads.
Oh, like a
And it's
pope.
not a dictatorship.
Yeah, like there's
And
no
the-
overarching pope.
Yeah, and
So-
if you have 5 rulers at all times, that means they come to a democratic consensus within them,
right.
and they recruit from the wisest of the young ones, of the new ones, as old ones pass away. Is what is most likely going to happen.
So it's like a council or an oligarchy or any other denomination of people organizing themselves in a group.
It's a council of elders.
Pretty much.
The elders are chosen is unknown, but something tells me it's a decision made by the elderly monks, not by the children or absent adults. So that's already cutting most of the population.
So it's again your headcanon. You don't know. You just assume it's what you think is evil.
Yeah, but even if
Asshole.
that's the case, how is that bad? Like, it's a bunch of elderly saying, hey, we think this guy should replace Bob. It's like, oh, yeah, he's pretty good.
I would love to hear his ideal of what is not a dictatorship in this fucking. Just in general, what is not a dictatorship? Does every does every Tom, Dick, and Harry have to have a direct input into the various politics which takes place? Like all the councils, hearings that constantly take place behind closed doors. Do you think every person is just trying to get through their 9-to-5 jobs and get home to their wife and child should care or would care about, I don't know, fucking UN law or some shit like that? Or how far a pencil is allowed to be before it's considered a weapon?
How much a cucumber should be bent?
Vegetable bending? Is that a thing?
It's what the EU does.
I know in the
It was
UN,
quite famous when they decided that cucumbers are not allowed to have bends. They have to be straight.
I know in the
Against weird cucumbers.
Sargon talked about this, where he was at the UN and they had a discussion, like a serious discussion, about how tall candlelights were legally allowed to be. And
Yes.
people didn't even read through the laws, they just looked at it and had advisors whisper into their ears, at which point they stamped approval on it.
Yes. There was also a time when they did want to actually decide that bananas should be straight for easier packaging, just like the cucumbers. But that was, even for them, too stupid that they got enough backlash to not demand straight bananas. I wish I was kidding.
How the
Okay.
hell do you even straighten a banana?
Anyway, let's get on with this guy's analysis of the air.
He needs to give alternatives on how he would see this council here, for example, would be positively run and not be a dictatorship.
The monks are in charge of. There aren't any aristocratic families forming in opposition to them. The nomads are all one big family, really, which is wholesome as fuck. There's no army here, but the monks don't need one. They're
No.
all benders, and they hide up in the mountains where few
necessarily.
can reach them. Maybe the adults could start a revolution, but since they would have been absent from the temples most of the time, they would have had no way to build up a power base, insert themselves into governance, or foment change. That might have been the original reason for the tradition's creation in the first place.
Do they need change?
I
Does
like
this
that-
giant orphanage need change?
I just like the idea of the creators intentionally making a nation that is the ideals of monk life. Grow up, be taught by your elders, go out and explore the world. Come back when you're older, repeat the cycle for the next generation. This guy is going,
And being safe.
yeah, what about overthrowing the government here?
Overthrow the government. Fucking who?
What about the theocracies building here? What about the royal families building? Okay, is there a royal family being built? Like, motherfucker!
Well, he's saying the nomads are good, but they're controlled by these leader monks, which is bad for some reason. And we don't see the connection of why that is. So he's not explaining himself. Anyway.
Hey, this whole council republic thing, which you could say is what the Air Nomads are from these little tidbits. That's something that communists like for some reason, because there is at least some merit in that, but communists tend to make bad choices in who they put on those councils. These monks, however, they have other goals in mind than some really stupid ideology. They're rather chill people, all about being, hey, let's just sit here and think about enlightenment and peace and don't hurt things and let's eat some plants and do we still have enough rice? Yeah, we still do have enough rice. What a nice sunset. Where's my teacup? Like, it's just chill. Leave the Air Nomads alone. They're fine. They don't need change.
All right, here's the Giga Chat. Thank you, sir. God, it can't be overstated how awful Korra was. Even child me hated it, and I wasn't alone. Viewership was so bad that Nickelodeon couldn't even bait kids into watching it by sandwiching it between SpongeBob episodes. Choke on a dick and die. Korra.
It had SpongeBob before and after?
Yep.
Wow.
You see, they had to sneak it into the food there, you know?
So that was half an hour that a kid would just do something else, like switch on the Super Nintendo.
As Yapo said, kids were actively avoiding that shit. They were just turning the TV off.
Okay, this play a round of Smash Brothers and then watch more SpongeBob.
I love that because I was a kid that watched that stuff with one of my best friends when I was like 12. And we were like, that's fine. So the mental image of... I'm glad that we never got season 2, honestly. That we just stopped at 1. Because... the mental image of a kid like 12... like 8 or 9 years old just switching off Korra season 2 as the dark avatar comes on screen is... Oh, that's great.
Stupid
No, I
sky
remember-
carpets.
I remember as a kid watching it, I tried doing it's just me. It's not the show, right? It's just the show's perfectly fine. It's good. I hate it. I can't do this. Just watch other shit.
It is the dumbest materialistic interpretation of Buddhist Taoist beliefs imaginable.
Oh,
and wrong. It's just so dumb.
Smut.
It hurts.
Frednon made a donation.
Yes, he said, I didn't read it yet, but I can't believe the captain remembered my birthday. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's in reference it's in reference to the Fire Nation being chill dudes.
Sorry, what happened?
There's a scene in I think it was the finale or the penultimate, where a bunch of workers on the Fire Nation blimps they go to like the main hall. One guy goes, I can't believe the captain remembered my birthday, and they all get dropped out of the hall there into the water.
Okay. Anyway, we are almost halfway done. We're at 11 minutes and a half. This is going nowhere fast outside of him describing the tribes of Airbender, which is
And being wrong, but hey, the Airbender stuff is fun.
all right.
Let's finish that.
All right.
Or maybe the temple. Either way, all in all, this theocratic system was a
What?
very small coalition regime. At the same time, there's little reward in being in charge. The head monks aren't living.
What? Do you know what small coalition regime even means?
Yeah, so a coalition is a style of government within a parliamentary system. I don't know how that works with the regime. I don't know even how that would be made public if you were to say, we are making a regime within this coalition, or we're making a military group or whatever. I don't even know. They would have that authority. They would have to ask for it from the main government or the main party in power from that government. This is like, what is he talking about exactly that a tribal society suddenly has? I don't understand.
Curious what he's got to say for the Earth Kingdom. Or is he just...
When you just throw around big words like that, and they are completely false in describing what you're trying to talk about, we call that pretentious. If you stop doing that, then you might start making good content because it's honest, and you might even get more viewers.
Regime has multiple meanings. You could go back to Plato's regimes. Those are literal forms of government, whereas we tend to use it within a military context. We have regimes within a military. So I don't know what he means through a parliamentary regime. That's a
small coalition.
Yeah, but that's
small coalition regime.
Yeah.
Maybe he means that the individual air temples together form something, and therefore are a coalition.
That's a stretch.
And the Air Nomads don't act. They neither act together nor independently. They're just around. They're just kind of there.
Okay.
Living in palaces. They aren't crushing their enemies before them and hearing the lamentations of their women. They just get to boss some people around. Part of the reason for this is how basic their economy seems to be. As far as we see, they just have some small-scale agriculture.
Don't bring up this bullshit.
That's cheating. This thing's cheating, goddammit.
Yeah, that didn't happen. This Korra shit didn't happen.
Okay.
Their temple starve. They don't produce anything of value like machinery or clothing or food, and they don't do much trade with.
They produce clothing for themselves. They're self-sufficient. They're the what is it? They're the autarkist's dream. They produce enough food for themselves. They produce enough clothes for themselves by herding their sky bison, and that's it. They're just self-sufficient. That's all.
This is the kind of guy that would seriously analyze. This is the kind of guy that would seriously analyze children, like baby children show, like Teletubbies and their societies.
You see, you don't understand the theocracy of Teletubbies and the communist sun god. Everybody knows when the windmill fucking fan starts blowing, the sun god arises.
Okay, well, I want to see where he goes with this part, and if it's the next section is any better, because this is going nowhere.
I just want to see how bonkers it gets.
That might also go a long way to explaining why there's no revolution. Too much risk for little reward. These monks are closer.
What is even the goal? What is even the goal of your fucking revolution? Why would you need one?
What would be revolved? What would change? What are you talking about?
Why would you need an HOA?
And into what?
Why in God's name would you ever implement these things?
A revolution into what? Is there a problem that we need a revolution for? You talk about risk reward. Why would we need a risk for what reward?
And I'm assuming he doesn't.
What is the reward? Zero?
He doesn't mean an industrial revolution. That's not what he's talking about. I think he means like
No. He wants an overthrow of the government for I don't know why.
Yeah, this doesn't make any sense. He's saying these people are totally chill. All the people are awesome. There's who's going to have a revolution? I was like, what? Why would you have a revolution? What are you talking about?
Everything is awesome.
Now,
Everything is cool when you're part of the regime.
what is happening with this screenshot? HOA meetings, the types, the rules, and how to prepare one.
Fuck HOAs. Burn them.
Anyway, let's see where he goes, because I don't know what this is.
To the leader of the association than Augusto Pinochet, a small dictatorship is still a dictatorship, though.
Oh my fucking god, get a life!
What?
Your homeowners associations are twisted demons
Little
derived from
bastard.
our garden associations here in Germany and Poland. That is your problem. They were never meant for home owning.
The whole thing with HOAs is it's like communists who could never actually get a grand scale thing, so they just torture other people in their little tiny community.
Sorta.
All right.
Just build a wall around and call it a gated
Or
community and
harmonic
you're done.
convergence granted airbending to more people, and so
There's
the
no
Air
such
Nation
thing.
is founded again.
That didn't
So
happen.
This isn't an official government, just an autonomous collective of airbenders where they don't take turns acting as a sort of executive officer for the week, and they travel around helping to fight crimes and shit. Tenzin and some of the others are respected, and the rest will do much of what they say, certainly, but what happens as the nation grows and becomes more complex?
This thing has nothing to do with the original Air Nomad. This is random chaotic
This is-
shit.
This
Freak
is like
accident.
this is like taking the British government throughout the years and then suddenly just flying off the handle and talking about Australian history, like it's actually relevant to the topic
Yeah.
at hand.
Yeah, this stuff is the Air Nomads in Korra. That's just LARPing as Air Nomads.
And then the new stuff is literally just Tenzin going around. Hello, did you get in a freak accident? Do you now airbend? You're mine now. Come with me. We're gonna help rebuild the Air Nation.
But I don't wanna.
Come here, you little brat.
I don't wanna.
I will teach you the good ways through pain or carrots. I don't care.
I will mostly peacefully beat
I
you.
don't want it. I don't want it.
You'll go out in a mostly peaceful fashion if you don't go with me.
I don't want it. Bend the knee. Do we have more quotes we can throw in?
Nomadic vigilante force forever, eventually some of them will settle down, likely in the old air temples. Once that happens, how will the new Air Nation organize itself? Impossible to say for certain, but if no one thinks ahead and decides to set up a democratic system, then it would be all too easy for it to fall victim to the same authoritarian tendencies that the rest of the world.
Oh my
Your
god!
democracy is shit.
What?
So
Okay.
wait a
There was no
Democracy-
problem. There were no problems in the old system of the Air Nomads. You fucking fuckwits.
Suddenly,
You got it.
Democracy would be way worse.
Don't you
It
know?
would make things worse for the Air Nomads.
Democracy is dying to the Air Nomads. We have to fix it. We can't let them be by themselves.
Imagine
Yeah.
being surrounded by a bunch of kids and being at their mercy of who they want to lead the Air Nomad temple that you're stuck in.
yeah, but
Imagine the kids that you've been ordered to raise have to elect which of you get to rule because this fucker thinks democracy fixes everything.
well,
Better not take that kid's
Look,
favorite car away.
the assumption was
Jean-Jacques
because they're
Piaget wants to do that in his orphanage. That's all right, but don't do this in real government.
The assumption is because the world has other forces, other societies, therefore they're going to influence the Air Nomads to become something else. It's like, why? You don't have any identity that they're like, no, this is our culture, this is our society, this is how we practice, and this is how
Right now, there is no Air Nomad culture is the problem. All these people come from different cultures, coming together are forced into some magical other culture that is extinct, that won't work. And that means they are all influenceable, easily corruptible. This has nothing to do with the original Air Nomads, how they worked. This is bullshit. This guy's just full of shit. I don't think he can actually think. He just pretends to.
Maybe the argument is if enough time passes and the size of the Air Nomads increases, they'll need bureaucracy to organize each other effectively. And then you could say, okay, they might be influenced by outside sources. They might try a different system of governance. Like, yeah, that's possible, but not right now, and not in the story that we've read or watched. That has not happened, nor is there any possibility of it.
Yeah, but the entire Air Nomad thing won't even work anymore because Air Nomads are now popping up randomly around the world. Airbenders. And even if you have your bendingly pure Air Nomad tribes, again, there will still be random airbenders popping up around the world now, which kind of defeats the purpose and the point. Because you also have to expect that every airbender now wants to live by the teachings of the old airbenders, of the monks. And it's just not for everyone. It's just
The Earth Kingdom is the location where the bulk of the original series takes place, which makes sense considering the sheer size of it. Around half the planet is controlled by the King and Ba Sing Se, sort of. What's clear from the beginning is that the Fire Nation occupies a significant portion of the country. Their industrialized economy, along with their more centralized strategy, allowed them to set up colonies all over.
Look at this bullshit map. Does this have anything to do with what we just saw? Who made this crap anyway?
It looks like he just butchered the water tribes. Look how stretched this looks.
Jesus Christ. I'm just looking at this side by side. This legitimately just looks nothing like the map. What is this shit?
Like, look at his style line. Very easily to discern map with the air tribes, the water tribes, the fire tribes, and the earth tribe, and then this fucking abomination.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a D&D map gone wrong.
Mm-hmm. So,
consistently keep the enemy army on the back foot. It has a hereditary monarchy. However, the Earth King is in a much weaker position than the Fire Lord. The Earth Kingdom before and during the war was more of a loose confederacy than a single nation. The king in Ba Sing Se may have been the sovereign on paper. In reality, he couldn't impose his will on the far reaches of his domain. In real life, a lot of big empires form when a heartland with some sort of advantage conquers some of their immediate neighbors, then uses their resources to conquer some more. Rome was a single city that took over and assimilated other cities in Italy with their superior military organization, then they...
If you're going to make your video in English, you should probably pick up a map that has all the text in English.
Conquistas de Pompeyo hasta el... number.
used their new manpower to expand out more and more. Basically just one tribe who united all the other steppe nomads before conquering everything. However, in these cases, the empire was still run from the heartland. From here, there are three possibilities. Either allow the subject territories a limited degree of autonomy, give them a say in running the empire, or constantly put down rebellions. The Mongols gave their subjects autonomy, which kept the peace for a while. Rome let foreigners gain citizenship and vote, and 90% of other empires played whack-a-mole with revolts until they fell apart. Places like the Great Divide have no infrastructure or military presence to aid any sort of travelers. The only way across that we see is an old earthbender. Then there's the Siwang Desert, which is huge and empty and isolated. The only towns we see are all hugging oases and seem to have little government presence at all. And of course there's the swamp, home to an entire tribe of waterbenders who were unaware of the outside world. Things like this would prevent the rulers in Ba Sing Se from being able to exercise much control over the far ends of the kingdom. Sending armies or even trade over land would be dangerous, expensive, and slow. In real life, the Sahara Desert and the Congo prevented most contact between northern and southern Africa until sailing technology got good enough to move down the coast. And the far edges of the Earth Kingdom are largely independent, with their own rulers, laws, and...
You know, you could have used the map of Africa where the Congo is actually marked out. You're really bad at this, you know?
Laws and that greatly differ from the heartland. Omashu still has its own monarchy that, while nominally subservient to the king in Ba Sing Se, doesn't depend on him to stay in power. King Bumi has his own army which seems more loyal to him and Omashu than the Earth Kingdom at large.
It's usually how it works.
I doubt him and his ancestors had to do much for the Earth King other than pay some tribute. Kyoshi Island is similar. They have their own warriors for defense, and they didn't even fight in most of the war. They weren't under control of the central government. The southern reaches of the kingdom are a hub for criminal gangs.
This whole thing is also the reason why the Fire Nation has it so easy.
And incursions from the Fire Nation. And so on. For situations like this, governments have to delegate tasks and exert indirect control. The most indirect form is tribute. Basically, the subservient state has to give taxes to their ruling state, whether in the form of money, food, soldiers, or other valuables, and beyond that, they get left alone. And yes, this isn't counting how by the time the show starts, the king is just a puppet. When the kingdom was first founded, it's likely that his power rested on control of the army. But when Avatar Kyoshi founded the Dai Li, he gained a new, more stable power base. The Dai Li are both secret police and bodyguards. They root out any dissent in the population and government to make sure the monarchy stays in control, kind of like the Okhrana in the Russian Empire. So once the king lost control of the Dai Li to Long Feng, he lost control of the country. How exactly this happened is unknown, but with half the country occupied by the Fire Nation, it's not hard to imagine things getting unstable. And when Long Feng lost control of the Dai Li, he was powerless. After the war ended, though, technology advanced quickly, and the Earth Kingdom lost a bunch of territory to the new United Republic. With the invention of trains and the lack of an occupying army, the previously decentralized kingdom ceded more.
He's talking about the giant rails they used to launch shit.
The what?
The giant rails. You know, the long stretches of bullshit they use to send cargo up and down the Earth Kingdom? Or the giant city?
This is...
They didn't use rails for that. They just earthbended along basically aqueducts without water.
Yeah, but is this in...
Rails?
Is this Airbender or is this in Korra? Which one is this?
This is in the Earth Kingdom, in the episodes in which they show how everything works.
I thought he was talking about Korra because he mentioned some Republic shit and then trains, which sounds like Korra shit.
No, it's both in Korra and in the original episodes, I do believe. Because we see he shows it in the start of the Earth Kingdom section. It's them sending that shit alongside, what's it called? The rails. But yeah, a friend just airdropped me an actual train from Korra.
Yeah, that's what I meant, because you mentioned some Republic stuff. There are no Republics in Avatar the Last Airbender. Yep, that's some metal bullshit.
Alright, so this is Korra stuff. Don't care.
Doesn't exist. Korra doesn't exist. Didn't happen, just like Disney Star Wars.
Alright, okay. Let's keep going.
And more bossing say. By the time the events of Korra takes place, the Earth Queen is a true monarch that rules her entire country, albeit it is smaller than before, and she still relies on the Dai Li to do so.
What? You motherfucker! He said nothing!
Yeah.
The show can't pick... For the one kingdom, you could have gone full out. Like, full theory crafting on the dictatorial nature of it, because the entire kingdom is essentially ruled by the Dai Li, which is the Illuminati of the Earth Kingdom.
Yeah, or the SS.
Oh, the SS, thank you. That's a very good comparison due to how they're portrayed in the show, and specific... Well, they're even more interesting because they started with good intentions by one of the previous avatars, and ends up dragging the kingdom into hell and allowing the Fire Nation to take over them.
Because now we get into bullshit. Because I bet he's gonna say positive things about the Republic now from Korra. Because that's a democracy. Somehow.
Alright.
And this is where I shut down.
The United Republic is unique that we see. The one that Amon tries to overthrow in the first season, and the one that replaces it. So I'll go over one at a time. The early Republic is interesting in that its executive body is a council rather than an individual like a president or prime minister. That sort of thing has existed in real life before.
You mean like with the Air Nomads? Or the water tribes?
There's nothing for me to add here. He's just gonna talk about Korra shit and nothing. Nobody cares about Korra's political system.
I know.
Hold on, let me fix that. Let's put this at like one.
Come on, we're almost through. For completionist's sake.
When the monarchy was overthrown, they had a succession of a single person.
No, they didn't overthrow the monarchy. They just took land and declared, well, this is another country now.
Did not have a person in charge. Organizations like the Executive Council, which had 5, all exercise the powers normally given rates in a similar way. It's a way of preventing any individual from accumulating too much power. How well this system works is a matter for debate, but it has existed.
It isn't a matter of up to debate. All right.
Yeah, I put it to 1.5 speeds because he's talking about something I don't think any of us are either capable or willing to argue because he's fucking Korra.
Wait, I can increase the speed.
No,
for only Smut could.
It's already on 1.5, I think.
Damn.
Anyway.
It's getting stupid.
Yeah.
It's getting really stupid. Switzerland? Fuck off. This is modeled after stupid American shit.
The moment he pulled up the graph, I was like, okay, we're speeding this one up.
Uh-huh.
All right.
The United Republic Council has 5 members, 1 representative from the Earth Kingdom, 1 from the Fire Nation, 1 from each of the Water Tribes, and Tenzin. First, I'd like to note how woefully...
Wait, that means the Water Tribe is overrepresented. You have more waterbenders than anyone else here.
Obviously, they're all unelected, which is awful.
Why is it awful?
They're representatives.
No democracy. Need democracy or something.
Who decided who's it going to be? By the way, thank you for... Okay. The unelected, that is awful. Okay, we need to do away with the European Union as it is led by a commission of commissars, which are unelected.
You know when people who are elected nominate people who are also elected to be diplomats? That's all they're doing. They're saying, hey, you get to go to the meetings with the UN. It's like, okay. Bye. That's all they do. It's not a big deal. And what if the people who were elected elect someone who wasn't elected by the people? It's the same thing. They say this is the best guy. We all voted on it. We all agree. We're all representatives of the people anyway. Okay, good.
Yeah. How did they get there? Why is that? How's the Fire Nation guy get there? How do the Water Tribes decide who gets there? With the Air Nomads, there's a system because they just choose the best from their wisest. How does that happen here?
What does he want, though? Like, what is the problem?
Fire Nation each get 1 vote, which seems fair enough unless one has far more people. The Earth Kingdom has a bigger population than the Fire Nation. Fewer people than either of the other countries. Ice Caps don't exactly have a lot of farmland, and Tenzin gets to vote on behalf of his family and no one else. What the hell kind of idiot would make an unbalanced system like that? When most of the council is absent, 1 member can make decisions for all of them, which seems like a flaw in the system too. The more
There's no non-bender on the thing. Have you mentioned that?
That is one of the main points the show tries to make and forgets about.
The show fails at everything it wants to do.
Oh, being a non-bender kind of fucking sucks, don't you think? There's all these benders who can literally kill you with just a thought, whereas other people have to use their fisticuffs.
Yeah. Man, wouldn't it be great to invent guns as the great equalizer? But now we have metal benders.
After Season 1, a president is elected. His exact powers are unknown. All we can say for certain is that he's the commander-in-chief of the armed forces and he runs the Republic City Police Force. There's also no legislative body that we see. No Congress or Parliament or Diet to do the bulk of the legwork for a government. These are the people that actually write the laws, so they're kind of important for things to function. If nothing else, you want them as a counterweight to the executive. Imagine if the president could do whatever he wanted all the time with no obstacles.
That is... not every society is built like America.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the argument is that the president is in control of the military. That doesn't mean he's a legislator. He doesn't do that. Now, yes, there are weird things in America where they argue or order from legislative powers, which are like executive orders, which is ridiculous. But it still has to pass through to the Senate and the House. They have to like approve of whatever he's doing. You can't just say, we're going to do this. It's like, no. The guys in charge, who are the House and the Senate, have to actually approve that. So
right, counterpoint.
Yeah.
Aang defeats Amon's brother in the council when they're having their little tissy meeting. And he immediately declares that he's getting thrown in prison, and he then gets thrown in prison.
Oh.
There's no one that has to go. There's no master of the jail or whatever coming in telling him, okay, I'll take over from here. No, he just says he goes to jail because he's on the council. They have the gun. They make the laws. They don't have like 30 different systems to handle all the bullshit. Because it's not America.
And in regards to useless presidents, did you know Germany has a president?
I did not.
Yeah, he's also not elected. He's appointed. And what he basically does is he cuts red tape and waves and gives 100-year-old people a bunch of flowers. And he does sign the laws into effect. However, when he doesn't want to sign a law in effect because it is unconstitutional, then some sort of corruption problem is found and he resigns very, very sadly. And the next president is appointed who does sign the law into effect. So we could also have just not have a president.
Yeah. We have lots of dignitaries like that in Canada. There's the Governor General. That is just apparently the right-hand man of the Queen or the King, whatever, the governing sex of Great Britain. And if ever there's a problem with government, they step in. But there's very rarely a problem. They very rarely do anything. And they don't really have any legislative powers. They just sort of sit there.
Yeah.
So there's lots of
technically our president is for preventing unconstitutional laws going into effect. But the few times one actually does use that power, he's removed.
Wow.
And nobody talks about it.
I thought that's why you have a Senate, but anyway.
That's another thing.
Okay.
Anyway. The final thing is done by the president, but because the president is pointless, we don't talk about him.
Okay.
Elections and becoming dictator for life.
How is he a dictator?
Unpopular, the people will remove him from office by voting for his opponent. However, just having elections doesn't turn a regime into a democracy. There are 1,000...
He's the leader of the military. He has no legislative powers. What are you talking about?
How are you going to argue now that just because there's elections doesn't mean that that stops dictatorships? Wasn't your whole argument that the Air Temple, like the Air Nomads, are a dictatorship because there are no elections?
Even though he doesn't know the process of how the new elders get chosen. Is it a democracy when everybody gets a vote, or when people after a certain age all get a vote? Or what is your process of who gets a vote anyway?
And is there an example of those 5 old dudes making a choice which is bad for the people or the nomads? And he's like, look, they are dictating what to do to this group of innocent people that did not elect these people. It's like, what did they do? Everyone pick fruit. Like, okay. Like, what's the problem exactly? That their system of government is so flawed and causing problems or issues to the health and well-being of these innocent individuals. I don't like he's reaching for something that I don't even think the story cares about to fill in. When we see these people on the council, these are people of authority. They're talking about war issues. They're not talking about, we should raise taxes, we should lower taxes, we should go annex this area, we should go develop this land this way. It's like, no, they're talking about war. They could have a storyline that involves farmland and farmers and raising crops and land and all kinds of things, but that's not the story. Why go that way? This is creating something which isn't there, unfortunately. And there might be a
lot of things that aren't there.
Yeah, there might be some logical guesswork you can do, like, okay, yeah, they probably have a democracy, they probably have voting, they probably got paper ballot, all this other crap. You're like, yeah, probably. Does it matter? No.
He's a lot, aside from this Republic nonsense that didn't happen. He's bringing up a lot of the problems that Barbie had with the kingdom, where everyone was happy, and that was unacceptable. So Barbie needed a revolution where she returns the kingdom into Barbie land, where only the Barbies are happy.
All right, we're at almost 20 minutes. We're doing pretty good now that we're going 1.5 times faster.
Different ways to results, especially when you're already in power. You know who else believes that all his votes are legitimate? From his position, Raiko can arrest or disqualify his opponents, restrict who is allowed to vote and how, have the count
Ukraine,
reasons, even if soldiers or paramilitaries attack voting stations or ballot collecting centers to interrupt the process. Any of these can disrupt things enough to tip the scales in his favor, and that's assuming this is a simple popular vote system.
Wait. Was this done before or after the Biden election?
What, the show?
This video.
Oh, the video. It is recent.
2022.
It was after,
Recent
right?
enough.
Damn, how did you not get banned from YouTube for questioning election results? How dare you?
Any structures in place to put more obstacles between the people and putting their desired an election system that weights votes in certain precincts and prevents more than two parties from forming, then it becomes even easier. Normally, executive power would be restricted by other branches of the government, but as we've discussed, there aren't any here. Raiko seems to operate entirely on the honor system. One other question, how does Republic...
So a council made up of representatives is not a branch of government? What? What do they do then?
I zoned out.
So having all these representatives from other parties or whatever groups, basically foreign nations like the UN, is not an aspect of government. Like, okay. Fair enough, I guess. In your world, that's not government. That's just a bunch of people coming together and talking.
Lightning vendors are unavailable. I'd guess coal, since they have their own deposits, or do they have to import it?
Irrelevant.
That goes for all the metal they use too. If they took all those resources from the Earth Kingdom when they founded the Republic, it's no wonder the Queen was so pissed at its existence. Kuvira was too, which brings me to my final segment.
Okay. Your main problem is...
Oh boy, we're going to talk about Hitler now. Let's go.
No. Wait. He keeps talking in conjunctive, or whatever you call that in English. It's all speculation. Everything he says is speculation. Everything is headcanon bullshit. You don't give us anything concrete about any of them. Fuck you.
The Earth Empire mainly differs from the control Kuvira is able to exercise and who she depends on to stay in power. The Earth Queen may have been a proper monarch rather than the head of a confederation, but she still had limits on her authority. Even right outside Ba Sing Se, there were uprisings from peasants who didn't want to pay their taxes. She wasn't well liked, and so when she was gone, her regime completely fell apart. The Earth Kingdom was decentralized, meaning the king, or whoever led the country, needed to keep all the local leaders content to make sure that tribute continued to flow, meaning that despite the existence of a monarchy and a secret police force, it wasn't really an autocracy. The ruling coalition was small, but it was bigger than the Fire Nations or the Water Tribes. The Earth Empire, on the other hand, had a much smaller coalition. Because Kuvira had access to high-speed railways, distance was no longer as much of a problem when ruling. On top of that, she had to spend years reuniting the country after the constituent states broke apart. When she did this, she humbled the local ruling elites and broke their power bases. Even if they stayed in control of their regions, they were dependent on her to stay in power. She was their only source for resources like food. Officially, Kuvira did all this on behalf of the Earth King, but since the king was a distant figure, the army wasn't loyal to him. They were loyal to their leader, Kuvira. Wu had no support base that would have allowed him to stop her coup, even if he wasn't an idiot. However, since she took all the power of the old aristocrats, they would have hated her, meaning she had to restructure things a bit. She outright threatens to send people to re-education camps if they disobey her, which means she's begun to embrace Fire Nation-style propaganda. We don't know for certain that consists of...
Are you sure the Earth Kingdom wouldn't have done the same?
I don't think... Would you call re-education camp just propaganda? I'm pretty sure it's much worse than just that.
I mean, did the... Okay, to actually pick up the term. It is a long time since I watched Avatar the Last Airbender. Did the Fire Nation have re-education camps?
I'm pretty sure they just had prison. And
I thought that was just this. Thought this was just a school doing a little bit of patriotic, nationalistic stuff for the children.
Right, which is why I'm like, I don't think we ever see an actual re-education camp or anything like that, like we see with the Earth Nation, who had a literal "there is no war in Ba Sing Se" sequence.
A prison isn't an education camp, and
exactly.
Education camp. That's a specific form of prison, and as we've said a couple of times, we never saw the people of the Fire Nation having any problems. They
I
have no
like
reasons to be upset. They seem to be in a good place economically and in every other regard as well.
I like the chat. It's like, well, there's prison, and then no, they definitely had re-education camps. Well, what do we define as re-education camps? Do we just count it as psychology lessons, or are we counting it as prison?
Yeah, are you an enemy? Well, we put you into our prison, but we don't actually care whether you start liking us. You're an enemy. That's all that matters. Whether you put effort into brainwashing the enemy, it's a completely different thing. What a mess.
Though it's not hard to imagine. Something along the lines of, Kuvira is perfect and freed you from the warlords that made your life hell for years. She's also getting rid of all the foreign influence that destroyed our country before.
She's also really hot.
Yeah, Kuvira
Only
straight up
to you.
purges the Empire of anyone who isn't of Earth Kingdom origin, a practice commonly referred to as ethnic cleansing. Thanks.
Commonly referred to as killing a lot of people.
Thank you, random. I don't know who this one is.
Who's this guy?
For putting that in your children's show, Nickelodeon.
What's wrong?
Right, that was Nickelodeon.
What's wrong with children's shows being about two warring nations? What, you think kids are stupid? Oh, people die? What?
Do you think kids don't understand the concept of a lot of people dying, thus there being less of that kind of people?
Kids learn very quickly what dying is.
Kids learn really. I'm pretty sure kids these days are obligated to watch some kind of rip-off of Dances with Wolves, be that Avatar or whatever, the blue one.
Well,
You don't even necessarily need to wait until a pet or grandparent dies.
no. There's so
If
many.
you have a garden and play there, then your kids will find a frog, and then someday the frog or the hedgehog will be dead in some corner of the garden, and then the kids will be super sad because Mr. Frog is dead. And then you need to make a little grave for your kids to put the dead frog inside, and then the little wooden cross or something, and then you put the earth in, and you need to have a little sermon so that your kids can mourn the Mr. Frog, and then like, oh god.
Yeah, well, any news program should tell us of the daily events of people being gunned down or run over by a car and asking questions. That's pretty common. So no, we don't.
Real shit?
Yeah, we have no. There's nothing wrong with having stories about dying or killing or war, even for kids' stories. It's death is the most common topic in storytelling. I would say about 90% of all stories are about someone dying, about to die, the idea of death, like this is going to cause someone to die. There's all kinds of stories, short and long, that have that topic for every genre.
Real shit? I watched it was like a TV, yeah, it was a news report from an offensive, like a very, very offensive, I think it was a short movie that showed a kid being taken like in a dark cellar, being dragged over to a guillotine and having his head decapitated off screen. But you just see the kid being forced down the guillotine by two grown men as he tries to struggle, and then the guillotine falls, and the entire broadcast just talk about how horrific that is, and I was scarred for life from that. And that was when I was 4. You don't go long, like you don't get along in life for very long without understanding or experiencing the concept of death.
Yeah, and if you take too long to understand it, that is not good for your development.
That too. Now, what Whisp described is a very personal thing, something that is like closer to home, rather than just, a detached understanding of the concept of death, which is what's described in the video. But both are very important for development. And
the Mr. Frog story?
Yeah.
You know what is really horrible? You then try to start looking out for other animals in the garden that they better not, if they die, you better find them before the kids do, because then you have to go all through all of the whole grave digging shit again.
There's a episode of what's the TV show called? The Fritz, I think it's called. The Fritz. Where they have a hamster, like a school hamster, and a hamster finally dies, and they have a funeral for it, and everyone comes to this funeral, regardless like age group. Even the bus drivers show up for this funeral, and one of the kids jump into the grave and open the casket and looks at the hamster. It's like, wait, you're not Speedy. Speedy was brown. And then one of the other bus officers, like, no, Speedy was blue. No, he had little red stripes at the top of his head. And the teacher's like, well, we switch out the hamsters when we find that they are dying because we would avoid this kind of stuff. We don't want you to engage with the concept of death like this. You
That's
lie?
exactly how you should. It's the softest way to do so.
Recess. That was the name for it. Thank you, yes, man.
All right.
Recess.
Here is the Giga Chat. Thank you, sir. Wait a minute. Was this the same guy who talked about how the Transformers are gay? It sure sounds like the same guy. Also, why is it a problem that the kids show talks about ethnic cleansing when the same show talks about war, slavery, etc.?
Just watch the Smurfs. It does the same.
It's not a problem. He just wants to make it a problem.
Mm-hmm. Also, the Asterix movies. It's war all the time.
Okay. We are at 23 minutes. We're almost done. There we go.
All this states that her support base isn't the old aristocracy. It's a combination of the average citizens who she's helped in her campaigns and Earth Empire ultranationalists who want to reunite their country and get rid of any people who don't fit their definition of what a true citizen looks like. And when Kuvira's army is smashed in the series finale, her support base no longer has the necessary strength to impose its will on the regional separatists. When the new king decides to allow them independence, there's simply nothing that they can do to stop him. In the aftermath of the Empire, all the old states are turned into independent countries with elected rulers. Will they be genuine democracies? Some of them will.
What is it? Okay. What is a genuine democracy? Tell me. Define it.
Go on.
Because that is important. That's the thing you want. That's why you want to overthrow the Air Nomads.
Hell, I want to know what a genuine piece of bread is. What the hell is this with these absolute terms he's using? This is the
genuine democracy.
What he believes, it's what he believes is a democracy. It's the thing that everybody should have, and he needs to spread it with the sword. He's a tanky, if for lack of a better word.
Hello there, Inuit tribe. You don't have a democracy, you say? Well, I'll bring it to you. Come in, boys. Let's break these
Let's break their kneecaps.
Let's break their homes.
Yeah, he needs to fight the Zulu until he can overthrow their government and install a democracy, a genuine democracy.
That'll go over well.
With Shambury, though, President Raiko
Like
can always
Germany?
invade his neighbors to install. Raiko can always invade his neighbors to install some good old democracy if they decide not to sell them resources at low prices. So the world of Avatar is a nightmare of authoritarianism.
Wait. How do you know? Is he controlled or influenced by business executives of some kind that he has to go attack foreign nations so they lower prices?
It was a jab at the United States.
I guess, but does that happen in the narrative at all?
No.
It was just a jab at United States foreign policy.
The president bad. Meanwhile, the main character accomplishes fucking nothing, and she's the reason that fucking awful man. Why Kuvira has a fucking spirit cannon in the first place.
She's the reason why Kuvira rises to power. She lets the Earth Queen die.
Oh, meanie Earth Queen. Oh, boo-hoo.
And oppression. Before, during, and after the...
How are the Air Nomads oppressed by themselves?
Those swamp people really oppress themselves, okay?
They're the hidden swamp people.
Also, just on a side note, the United States of America are not a democracy.
Constitutional Republic.
Yeah. It's a federation of states, just like Germany.
Bodies we see are run by a minority of the population. The rights, needs, and desires of...
Yes, that's a democracy. We get it.
That is what leadership is. Do you think?
The rights
he's a commie.
The rights need
Full
to
stop.
be specific in the rights department, sir.
Can I hear that again?
All right.
Though, President Raiko can always invade his neighbors to install some good old democracy if they decide not to sell them resources at low prices. So the world of Avatar is a nightmare of authoritarianism, totalitarianism, and oppression.
Wait, what's the difference? Why are you who's the authoritarianism? Where is it? And what's
That's why I brought up the Air Nomads.
Yeah, he's just using words now for no reason. Like, what? Where did we?
He's been doing that all the time.
And after the events of both shows, all the ruling bodies we see are run by a minority of the population. The rights, needs, and desires of everyone else goes out the window.
What?
What rights? What
How
needs?
can you have... Okay, by definition, how can you have a leader that is led by a majority?
What are the needs of the Fire Nation people that they suffered? We never saw any Fire Nation people complain. We never saw any Air Nomads complain about their government.
Can you imagine?
Southern tribes seemed fine.
Can you imagine 49% of the people wanting to be led by 51% of the people? Like, as leaders? Like, I need this massive bureaucracy of leaders to...
No, that's when you try to split off, because it just doesn't work. And then that splits off, and then that splits off. And that's why we, in a good government, you have a subsidiary principle where decisions are made on the lowest possible level that concerns it. Like renaming streets, well, you give that to the people who live there.
Well, he's
As the
implying
most basic
that
example.
we need more people to be in charge of the lesser amount of people, which is the opposite of what a leadership or leaders are.
We have increased the number of seats in our Bundestag over, let me guess, half a century. And it didn't make anything better. It just costs more. It just costs more tax money. It didn't make anything better. Still the same corrupt processes that keep the same assholes at the top in power, because they don't change. They don't switch out.
I'm still stuck on the leadership is a minority. Yes, that is how leaders work.
And that's also a democracy. Democracy will also be run effectively by a minority at the top. That is what the elite is.
When you show up to a tabletop game, the DM is by all technicality a dictatorship led by a minority.
We should democratically decide how the campaign continues.
Yeah, that's gonna go over real swell.
I want to see that experiment.
To balance the needs of 4 nations than the few dozen that exist after the Earth Empire's dissolution. The Southern Water Tribe might officially declare independence at some point. The Fire and Air nations may split into smaller states too, and that complicates things further. That's the thing, though. The Avatar wasn't there to make things better. They were there to keep balance, to keep things the same as they've always been. Ozai, Kuvira, Longfang, and Unalaq were all nasty dictators and the villains of the show, though they were not the only dictators.
They were mainly corrupt fanatics.
When you get down to it, the heroes were often just fighting one authoritarian regime in order to prop up a different authoritarian regime.
Wait, I'm sorry, I kind of had
The problem is not having one person at the top. The problem is having a corrupt fanatic at the top.
Though they were not the only. Down to it, the heroes were often just fighting one authoritarian regime in order to prop up a different authoritarian regime. They may not have seen it that way, and they were always choosing the lesser of two evils, but that's what was
Forming governments? Man, why are you such a dictator?
Democracy is always choosing a lesser evil, if you're lucky. Because the bigger evil is usually pretty good at manipulating the masses, voting for the bigger evil. Or, as you said with the Russia example, well, it doesn't matter who votes, it matters who counts the votes. Just saying.
They were change, not oppression. Some people are born with the power to move mountains and craft tsunamis. An elite class will be created. It's inevitable. With the continued march of technology, non-benders will grow closer and closer to parity with those who previously ruled over them, And since they outnumber them by far, the aristocratic system that's been in place for thousands of years will no longer be tenable. That doesn't...
The thing with Avatar the Last Airbender was that benders and non-benders didn't really seem to be at odds with each other. In general, benders were just being respected for having a rare skill that they could use. Because it isn't as common as it's put in Korra.
Also, he's going full tanky now with the inevitable revolution of the underclass, overthrowing the aristocracy, because he probably jerks off to the idea of the Russian Tsar being killed.
Oh, he loves killing children?
He seems like the type, listen to how he talks about the rise of the underclass, the Untermensch.
That's to be expected in a world with power to move mountains and craft tsunamis. It's inevitable. With the continued march of technology, non-benders will grow closer and closer to tyranny and easily ruled over them. And since they outnumber them by...
Mike, you're echoing.
Oh, my bad.
Outnumber them by far, the aristocratic system that's been in place for thousands of years will no longer be tenable. That doesn't instantly mean all governments will be run by large coalitions in the future. Non-benders are perfectly capable of creating social hierarchies and locking other people out of power. And revolutions often just change power from one group of elites to another. What does the future look like? Hard to say, but there's plenty of room for improvement.
You said nothing. You
His
only
entire video
moaned and complained. What is the problem with the Air Nomads?
His entire video is setting up that these systems need to be overthrown, and then he defeats his own point by saying, well, revolutions also just lead to different people taking power, and they become dictatorial as well. Then what is the democratic solution? How is that a solution, my friend? How? Go on.
What type of democracy? What version of these 2,000 different types of democracy do you want? Because the Air Nomad system seems to already be a system of democracy. It's at least more democratic than what the European Union is presenting us with, where you have a vote for a part of that body that is irrelevant for the most part. Yay! What democracy! Amazing. Throw your ballot in the box. It does nothing. Like the goggles.
DW was right.
The idea of having nations and governments is as foolish as keeping the human and spirit realms separate.
You've had to deal with a moronic president and a tyrannical queen. Don't you think the world would be better off if leaders like them were eliminated?
If you watched this far, thank you so much. By this point, most people have...
Oh, he agrees with the radical anarchist who just wants to destroy the world by merging it with the magic bullshit place.
We'll teach them the rights of our peaceful living through force.
The fire rises, comrade.
Anyway, that was...
Villain. That was not fun. That was just dumb.
I was going to say fun, but I'm like, I don't know about that.
I would say it was entertaining, not fun.
Well, the topic was politics, so naturally you had to follow that. But he was just implying and standing a bit too far into the lens there. It's like, dude, that's not what happened in the story. And I don't like all this headcanon crap. That doesn't mean anything. Aside from what he thinks a dictatorship means or what a monarchy is or all these other terms he invented, like a regime, without defining it.
Also, I stand by what I said. He is a faggot that argues Starship Troopers' fascist book. I can't take his argumentation seriously after that.
All right, well, let's get to memes. Here's the Giga Chad. Sorry, but the human sacrifices will stop.
Yeah.
Hey, wait a minute. That thing, that ugly red thing on the left looks like that one thing you fought. Well, you know,
The one thing?
The Tomb Raider game.
Oh my god, it does!
It's the ugly chick where it's like, oh no, this was the good guy all along. The evil-looking creature. Oh, how should I have ever known?
Could I miss that?
Join the fire mission. We will not let the Avatar stand in our way. Oh, God. Oh. Aang, did you know in a past life you were anti-Semitic? I always knew I was special. Oy. Katara, when Aang picked up water bending quicker than she did, I think we can call all. I think we can all water bend. Okay. Katara, who lost her mother, I knew you wouldn't understand. Sokka, who has the same mother as Katara. Y'all thought only Katara could control them waves. 20-year-old Katara on Aang's 18th birthday. 116-year-old Aang on Katara's 18th birthday. Sandbenders upon top. What is that? Oh boy.
These are very high level memes.
Yeah, you have to understand the characters to know what's going on. Everybody loves
Even the moon.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it does.
Korra and SpongeBob used to be beefing heavy.
That's kind of fun.
That is funny.
I'm not religious. I consider myself more of a Buddhist than anything.
This one.
Oh, you're these types.
I'm not going to read
And a bunch of quotes cheating on
That's a
women.
lot of
Yeah,
that's a lot of text.
I'm not going to touch that.
Yeah, generally, women don't get to Nirvana.
I can't believe the captain remembered my birthday. He really does care. That was the quote from Threadnought.
Happy birthday.
Toph and Katara. Oh. Ha ha ha. You are very boring. You never do something interesting. What? No, I'm funny. Okay, I jump from Appa and you and catch me with your airbending. Okay, let's do it.
I prefer the real Toph. I said the real Toph perfection. Toph. Where's Appa?
Toph was shown easily bending a meteorite that Sokka gave her, meaning that Toph can bend any dirt regardless if it's from Earth or not, meaning Toph could have definitely bent the moon? And the only reason she didn't do it was out of respect for Sokka and his ex-girlfriend?
That would have been amazing at the final battle. They just cross Ozai's castle with the moon.
I'm quite sure she has a range. She can't just manipulate things from miles away.
It's like the Force.
Yeah, I'm gonna move the moon.
All that limits you is your mind.
Yeah. Aren't you
an Avatar the Last Airbender fan? Yep. And this is the Avatar. Yep. Well, the Avatar is in this live-action movie that is hated but still exists. Makes sense to me. So there is a live-action movie. There is no live-action. There is no movie
in Boston.
Katara, look, I'm metal bending.
I know.
Yes.
Bang, yes.
That's good. Top. Oh, okay. Now, what was your proposed strategy again? We should take your home peninsula and push it somewhere else. You're the most powerful bender I've ever seen.
Shut up, baby. I know it.
Oh. You're awfully cute, but unfortunately for you, you're made of meat. Oh.
And then you see the parent of the thing.
And during Sozin's Comet? Sokka, Toph, and Suki during Sozin's Comet. Okay.
Yes, the feet girl.
I can't read that because black font on black background.
Throw the wind monkey down the well.
Throw the wind monkey down the well.
Okay, so what? Are they implying a easily influenced Asian design has anything to do with whatever's happening in?
Nah, the Kavira's empire is just Nazi Germany. That is the whole thing.
I'm surprised they managed to edit the swastika in. I probably pain in the ass with Photoshop.
Okay, that is a.
That's why we keep saying Korra has no creativity in it.
Yeah, they just pretty much took the design from.
That is literally just a Gustav.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the name. I knew it started with a G. I was like, what the hell is that thing called again? Okay, I say the whole world must learn.
Schienengeschütz.
Sorry?
Schienengeschütz.
Okay. I say the whole world must learn of our peaceful ways by force.
Mm-hmm.
Sigh, I hate destroying things. Except this pussy. Jesus.
Aang, I took away the bending of the most powerful firebender when I was only 13. Korra, I used the Avatar state to win a race against children.
Yeah.
Right!
That's fucking pathetic.
You asshole.
Yeah, well.
I need someone to be my earthbending teacher. Maybe send me one, your nicest ones. Laughs evil.
All right. And then on a high note with Toph, that's pretty good. Good for me.
The Melon King.
Oh my god. Nice. Okay, that's enough. Enough weird takes about politics in Avatar the Last Airbender. I don't know what he was on about half the time.
That was dumb.
That was pretty weird. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what's he getting at, but his descriptions were off, and his conclusion to what could have happened to these tribes were nonsensical. I don't even know what he was getting at there.
Considering that the Air Nomads are essentially the ideals of the Dalai Lama's teachings, do you think he would stand by this video if we asked him, hey, do you think the Dalai Lama's teachings is dictatorial? Do you believe the Dalai Lama is a dictator?
Oh boy.
Everybody in this country wants him to be the boss. But yeah, whatever.
Not sure what he was getting at with this video, but anyway, that was our Friday. So thank you guys for the suggestion. Weird stuff, man. Have to relax a bit. So it's going to be another series of warm day or hot days actually in Ontario. I don't know what happened, but the weather just suddenly picked up, getting to the end of summer. But I'm okay with that. So going to enjoy the heat for whatever it's worth. So thanks, guys, for the suggestion. We'll talk to you real soon. Keep the suggestions coming and the voting going. We'll see what we can do tomorrow. And hopefully we'll have an anime-inspired video for Monday, or at least a theme surrounding it, even the mention of a show. Hopefully with another YouTuber who actually has coherent thoughts and references and doesn't speed up.
Probably seen the show instead of just fucking...
Gets angry on people on Twitter who supposedly exist. We don't know if they do or not, but
Are these Twitter people in the room with us right now?
Yeah, having bad opinions on a thing I like. It's like, what? That's not an argument, dude. Anyway, we'll talk to you soon.
Definitely more. We need more good suggestions.
Even positive videos. We covered a good video I think last week. That was fun, and we had no real arguments with it aside from nitpicks, because what else is there to say? Aside from we agree with it. So we do take good videos as well. That's totally cool. So keep the suggestions coming. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.